that radiant moon, that Badr, who the Ansari women praised, beating their duffs, commemorating his beauty, collectively upon the rooftops of Medina, as he entered that city that through him became Munawwar. بإذن طلع البدر علينا من ثنية الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داعي. This full moon has risen over us from the past of bidding farewell, and our shuyukh mentioned, bidding farewell to the egos and their motives. And if we're honest, those of us, and there are many of us, soldiers who've put in decades in the tensions of the da'wah, if we were to bid our egos farewell, we would know that we were bidding farewell that which gets in the way of this work that we have lived to try to do. And that the Ansar had to bid farewell prior to the rising of that full moon over them. Gratitude is obligatory upon us, brothers and sisters. Gratitude is obligatory upon us. Not as long as we're calling to Allah, مَا دَعَا لِلَّهِ دَاعِ, as long as a caller is calling to Allah. And who is the caller other than the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? الدَّاعِ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَالسِّرَاجِ الْمُنِيرِ. So when he entered that city that was known as Yathrib, which in Arabic means corruption, it became Taybah, which means purity, was totally changed, transformed. As Anas said, everything in it enlightened. The sickness that was there that took not only the mother of the Prophet ﷺ, but before her father, before her his father ﷺ, that epidemic was moved, and it became the pure land, the earth of which the beloved would dip his finger in and say was a remedy, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But how were the hearts of those who the full moon rose over? How was the soil of the souls of those who were purified by his entrance, ennobled by his placing his blessed feet upon them? They were lovers. He entered, and when he came to the dwellings of Bani Najjar, little girls came out, again singing to him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, نحن بنات من بني النجار يا حبذا محمد من جار. We are girls from the tribe of Najjar. How very beloved it is to have Muhammad as a neighbor. So he went to these little girls, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, do you all love me? And they said, yes. And he said, Allah knows that my heart loves you. And may Allah make us those type of dua, that when we meet the Muslim young people, the Muslims, again, how much was the ignorance at that time? How deep were the wounds and how heavy was the baggage of those in Medina when he entered, who had been feuding for 100 years prior to his entrance, but Allah knew that he had a heart that loved them. And we ask Allah that he give us these hearts like that, da'i ila Allah bi'idnihi, and these hearts that love the da'i ila Allah bi'idnihi, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. But how were these hearts prepared? How were these hearts prepared? In the 11th year, after the Prophet ﷺ's most difficult year, the 10th being the year of sorrow, in the 11th year he continued to strive, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And how many years of sorrow has anyone who's tried to do his da'wah, imitate his da'wah, be carried by his da'wah seen? After the year of sorrow, what happened in the 11th year? He strived, ijtahad, offering himself to the tribes. And 6 of the Ansar believed in him. What were they coming to do? And this was during the Hajj season, but they were coming to make a treaty, to make an alliance with Quraysh against their fellow clansmen or tribesmen, distant tribesmen, the Khazraj. 6 of the Aus believed. And he asked them, will you shelter me so I can carry the message of my Lord? And what did they say? And if we hope to shelter the da'wah of Sayyidina Rasulullah, it behooves the da'i to reflect about this, lest he, as Amir said to us last night, not be a barrier to the light of the Prophet ﷺ, casting his shadow on the da'wah. They said, we had bu'ath the year before. And some narrations mention it was many years before. What was that? It was an intense battle between the Aus and the Khazraj. Distant cousins with a common ancestry. And the same nisbah, Bani Qayla, they had this intense battle that ravaged their ranks and killed the leaders on both sides. And in this condition, we can't support you. You have to stay in persecution. We have to remain in ignorance. We have to remain in darkness. Because why? Because we're feuding with our brothers. We had this feud last year, this intense battle, and it's decimated our ranks. They had been warring for 100 years, and they said, but they made an intention. Give us a year. And if Allah reconciles between us and our tribesmen, no one will be able to reach you with harm. So they were true to their covenant, and the next year they returned. This time, both groups represented. Some of the Aus and some of the Khazraj. In total, 12. And they made the pledge to the Prophet ﷺ, known as the pledge of the women. From its proscripts, that they not associate partners with Allah. They correct their belief. From its proscripts, that they correct themselves economically, that they not steal. From its proscripts, that they correct themselves in terms of their marital relations and their inter-gender connections, that they not fornicate. And they returned. They saw their ignorance and they asked that the Prophet ﷺ send them a teacher, and he sent them Mus'ab bin Umair radiallahu anhu, who taught them the Quran. So they began the reconciliation, and they also acknowledged their need for knowledge and began to learn. Opened themselves up to that revelation that descended upon the best of creation, that was a cause to their purification. And Allah purify all of us. On His hand, the chiefs of the two sides embrace Islam. Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'adh and Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Ubadah. And with their Islam, Islam spreads in their two tribes. And then in the 13th year, they came with 70, representing not just both tribes, but both sexes. Women were present as well. And now, after this reconciliation had occurred, they were prepared to receive Sayyidina Rasulullah. Were prepared for the full moon to rise over them that would turn the Yathrib of their disputes, of their infighting, of their putting this before service to Allah's messenger, to the Taybah, of their loving one another for Allah's sake. They're being reconciled for Allah's sake by that one who was sent to them as a ni'mah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And with this, they gave him an oath that they would protect him the same way they protected themselves and their wives and their children. So with this, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he gave permission. The soil had been prepared for his companions to begin making their hijrah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He waited for His command until Allah made His command, and He made His hijrah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So with that, with this purification, with this reunification of those distant brothers and sisters, their hearts were prepared to be purified by the beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He is the most merciful of the merciful, to make us of those who love one another for His sake. To make us like Al-Aus and Al-Khazraj, who put down all differences and rise above to shelter Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He make these institutions which are being founded in this land. And it's our hope from Allah that the people of this land embrace Islam just as the people of the Medina embraced Islam. And it is our hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these institutions be like that masjid that he established. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So when he entered al-Medina and he established his masjid, how was that masjid? How was that masjid that he established that was only partially roofed, and what was roofed was from palm thatch that would leak onto the earthen floor and soil his blessed forehead, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he prostrated. That masjid, humble in its form, great in its meaning, la masjidun ussisa ala taqwa min Allahi min awwali yawmin ahaqqu an taquma fi. A masjid that is established upon taqwa from Allah, God-fearingness from the first day, it's more deserving that you stand in it. We asked some of our shuyukh about establishment and institutions. If they're established upon taqwa, does that mean that the light of the Prophet ﷺ will stand therein? And they affirmed. How was the quality of the companions that were with him in that masjid? فِيهِ رِجَالٌ يُحِبُّ أَن يَتَطَهَّرُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُطَّهِّرِينَ. In it, there are men who love to be purified, people who love to be purified, and Allah loves those who are purified. We ask Allah to purify us to His pure and purifying Prophet. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Please excuse me.